Shavua Tov, Parashat Shalach, we have a new prime minister coming in. He's a rat, a crook, a fraud, no good. Shavua Tov, Parashat Shalach, we have a new prime minister coming in. He's a genius, diligent, honest, a tzaddik, and a leader. People see the same exact facts and come to the opposite conclusions. How is that? Israel just fought a war against Gaza. Israel was 100% right. Israel just fought a war against Gaza. Israel committed war crimes. People see the same facts, come to the exact opposite conclusions. How is that the case? In our Parsha, the land of Israel is good, very good. We can certainly go and conquer it. In our Parsha, the land of Israel is a land that consumes its inhabitants. There is no way we can conquer it. They see the same thing, opposite conclusions. How is that? Well, that's the reason why we don't have a daily commandment of Kriyat Re'eh, of the recitation of the sea. Rather, we have Kriyat Shema, the recitation of the Hear. Specifically, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Because the power of sight, while it may seem to be more conclusive, is actually not. People see the same thing, but filter it through their own emotions and desires. And this is a very powerful psychological phenomenon. Let's take a deeper look at this parsha and a surprising understory that's there. Learn from there some important messages for those that might be the recipients of what we will call envy, specifically our new prime minister-to-be, or anyone in any situation where that's relevant, and also for those of us who might be feeling a little bit of concern that maybe somebody is receiving privilege that they don't deserve. Because this week's Parsha is not just about the land of Israel. Indeed, it is a reenactment of an earlier story from the Bible, the sale of Joseph. Let's examine some of the facts. First of all, we have a father figure who gives preference to a son. That would be Jacob to Joseph, who gives him the striped coat of many colors. And here we have Moses, who shows preference to a figure who is like his son, his prime student, which would be Joshua. In the list of the 12 scouts that Moses sends, each of their names is given. They are one per tribe, and the representative of the tribe of Ephraim is a fellow named Hoshea bin Nun, but at the end of the list, we see that Moses changes his name from Hoshea to Yehoshua, and this implies a prayer which Rashi gives us, Yah Yoshiacha me'atzat meraglim, may the Lord save you from the plotting of the spies. So therefore we have a father figure showing some preference to one over the other 11. And that's similar, of course, to the story of Joseph. And further, Joseph happens to have dreams which indicate that he has a future of leadership over the others, that they're going to bow down to him. Well, Joshua also is destined for leadership. At the end of last week's Parsha, we read the story of Eldad and Medad, two gentlemen who received prophecy in the camp. And what was their prophecy? The rabbis tell us, Moshe met v'Yoshua machnis. Moses is going to die. Joshua will lead the people into the land of Israel. So he's also destined for leadership. A lot of similarities here. Take it a step further. The father figure in Genesis, Jacob, sends Joseph to be alone with the other brothers. Well, Moses is sending Joshua together with the other scouts, and we'll see how that could end up and how Moses prevents it, but what in the end happens. Finally, another similarity, and that is that the hero of the story of Jacob and Joseph is Judah, Yehudah. Judah is the one who first of all convinces Jacob to send Benjamin with the brothers back to Egypt. And when the leader of Egypt, who is Joseph in disguise, wishes to keep Benjamin as a slave, it is Judah who stands up to him and says, no, I will go in his place. I will be his guarantor. Let the boy go, take me. And in the story of the scouts, when the 10 scouts come back from the land of Israel, having seen it as they were instructed to use their power of sight, when Moses says, go and look at the land, and they give a bad interpretation. They don't say falsehoods. They describe what they saw, but they use a critical word, ephes, which means it's worth nothing. We can't go there. The people are too strong. They'll kill us. So they gave their interpretation, and they gave their bad interpretation. But as the people began to seethe with this report, one person stands up and quiets them. His name is Kalev ben Yefuneh. He tells them that the land is good and we can certainly go there. And who is Kalev ben Yefuneh representing? The tribe of Judah, Yehudah. So there's also the same cast of characters. Oh, and of course I will mention that Joshua, Yehoshua, is a descendant of who? Of Joseph. Now, there's even a little hint in the melodies that we use when we read the names of these tribes. Each one is using the melody of a Zakef Katan, which goes Zakef Katan, Lemate Reuven, Shamua ben Zakor, for the tribe of Reuben, Shamua ben Zakor. And so it is for all of the tribes except for two. One of them is the tribe of Ephraim, and that is Ephraim is one of the two tribes that came from Joseph. Joseph had two sons, Ephraim and Menashe, and they were elevated to the status of tribes to be equal to their uncles. So Lemate Ephraim, it's not a Zakef Katan, it's a Merchat Tipcha. Zakef Katan is a little higher. Lemate Yisachar Yigal ben Yosef, but here it's Lemate Ephraim Hoshea bin Nun. Ephraim, it's a Merchat Tipcha, and there's one other tribe as well. Lemate Menashe, Lemate Yosef, Lemate Menashe, Gadi ben Susi, I believe it is. So the other tribe that gets also just the Merchat Tipcha is the tribe of Menashe, also a son of Joseph. So the melodies seem to be indicating something about something Josephian in this particular story. Now, once we have that as an understanding, let's take a look at a very puzzling question. Moses, as I mentioned, prays for Joshua. He changes his name from Hosea to Joshua, that God should spare him from the plotting of the spies. If Moses knows that the spies are going to plot, if they're going to be up to no good, then why does he send them in the first place? God says, I'm not commanding you to send the spies. Shlach lecha, send for you, according to your judgment. If you feel it's the right thing, do it. So if Moses knows they're going to be plotting so much so that he has to pray for Joshua, why does he send him in the first place? And second of all, if he's concerned that they're going to plot later, that now they're going with good intentions, but they're going to become corrupted, then why doesn't he pray for all of them? Why just Joshua? I believe that the real cause of all of this is something which we call envy, or in Hebrew, ayin hara, the evil eye. What exactly is envy? What is the evil eye? It is basically the belief that somebody has cut in line and received some kind of privilege or blessing or wealth that they do not deserve. And the one who holds the ayin hara, the evil eye towards someone, the one who is envious, seeks to take away from them that privilege, whatever it might be. This was the French Revolution, when the people felt that the wealth of the elites was far beyond any measure and it needed to be taken away from them. And who knows, the French Revolution and what happened in France at that time was a very complicated situation. Socialism is predicated upon the same idea that if somebody gets too wealthy, even though they did it by hard work and providing some benefit to the masses, if they have too much, it really should be taken away from them. We have to be careful about political movements that are based on envy and negative emotions. They tear us apart. And, well, the original envy was reserved for Joseph. The brothers were resentful of his favorite status in his father's eyes, of his multicolored coat, of his dreams of leadership, and it must be taken away from him. And so therefore, at the moment when he was sent all alone with them, they plotted against him. And the first thing they did was they took away the symbol of his privilege, the coat, and they sold him eventually to be a slave in Egypt. Well, Moses was afraid that the same thing might happen to Joshua, because, as we have shown, Joshua was known to be destined for leadership. And the other spies might have felt, why him? He's younger, he's cutting in line, it's not fair. Moses is showing him favoritism, but really any one of us might be a better leader. We've paid our dues as well. And Moses was afraid they might try to take it away from him by harming him. They're going on a dangerous mission to dangerous territory. They might put Joshua in harm's way. Something bad could happen to him. And therefore Moses prays God should spare you from the plotting of the spies. Not that the spies were going to say anything bad about Eretz Israel. That didn't cross Moses' mind, but simply they might try to harm Joshua. But what happened was this phenomenon of the eyes seeing what the emotions want the eyes to see, even if reality is objectively different. You see, they saw the beautiful land, but they knew, and they were going with the intention to report what they saw. They weren't planning to do evil. They didn't plan to be the 10 evil spies. But their emotions told them that if Bnei Israel go into the land of Israel, well, that means Joshua is going to be the leader. And well, that is not something that they were emotionally capable of handling because of the envy, because of the ayin hara. And so therefore they were prepared to destroy the whole enterprise in order to prevent that from happening. Not that they meant to, but their gut feeling made them color the view that they saw and present it the way they did. You know, a judge is not allowed to receive a bribe. What if the judge is offered a bribe by one of the litigants in a case, not to judge in his favor, but to be fair? The litigant says to the judge, "Judge, I want you to give us a fair trial. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your effort. I want to give you a gift, but don't show me any favoritism. Be objective, be honest. Take this 1,000 shekels, but be honest." The judge is disqualified because even though he will have every intention of being objective, his emotional sense of ingratitude, of indebtedness and gratitude to the one who gave him the gift is going to be too much. He will interpret the things that he sees, the testimony that he hears, in favor of the one who bribed him. It's just the way psychology works. It's a very powerful thing. It's so powerful that a remarkable story is told by the social psychologist Robert Cialdini. He was researching persuasion, and well, who does better persuasion than cults? They persuade people to come into their group, give them their entire wealth, submit themselves to all kinds of strange disciplines and in many cases abuse. And so Cialdini was interested to know how they do it. What is their technique of persuasion? So he went to an open house from a certain cult. Of course, they don't call themselves a cult. They call themselves a group or a religion, whatever. And he went with somebody who had been in that cult and who had been deprogrammed and who knew from the inside just how corrupt, and apparently law enforcement also knew how corrupt this particular group was, just how corrupt, how manipulative this group was, and how the leaders may proclaim that they're one thing in public, but privately they take the money and they live the life of Riley, as they say. And so Cialdini went with this fellow just to observe how they do the persuasion. And the lecture was proceeding, and Cialdini noticed his friend was getting more and more agitated as he went on, because the man was looking at the people in the room, listening to this person, and being convinced by them when he knew that this person was lying straight out of his teeth the whole way through, until finally at the end the friend had it. He could take no more. He raised his hand as if to ask an innocent question, but when he was called on, he then proceeded to explain to the group just how false the whole presentation had been, how corrupt the group is, his own experiences, and warned everybody, run away from here now. Well, the presenter was preparing to close his books and make a hasty retreat, having been exposed, but then a remarkable thing happened. Most of the people in the room swarmed to the front to sign up for the group, even after they had heard how false, how corrupt, how evil this group was. They still wanted to join. And Cialdini couldn't understand it. Well, he did understand it, but he was amazed at the fact that the emotional need of these people to belong to something that had promised them everything that they felt in their hearts was missing from their lives was stronger than objective, visible, clear evidence. That's what happened to the spies. They saw the land. They should have said what Kalev said. Kalev of the tribe of Judah, the hero. They should have said what he said. But because in their hearts they knew that saying good things about the land was also saying, we want Joshua to be our leader, and that they could not do because of ayin hara, because of envy. You know, we say that the mitzvah of Shema, of hearing, It's not the mitzvah of re'eh, of seeing, because when you see something, your emotions filter what you see. But when you hear something, to hear means to understand. Even some commentaries say that the word Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel, means understand, O Israel. You have to internalize it. That is the cure for the evil eye. Now, if a person is really afraid of the evil eye, and future leaders and prime ministers take note, the one who received the first evil eye was none other than Joseph. I don't know if the first, but the most pronounced. And the Talmud says that if a person is afraid that the evil eye will be directed at them, if people are going to be envious of them, hostile towards them, because maybe they have achieved something that others haven't, and maybe others feel that it's not fair, it needs to be taken away from them. So if a person is afraid of all of that, they should do the following strange thing. They take their thumbs and intertwine them, either like this or like this, I'm not sure what the correct pose is, and they recite the following saying, I am from the descendants, the seed of Joseph, and the ayin hara, the evil eye, has no power over me. That's a strange thing. What's with this little choreography over here, this little pose? And how can we say we're the descendants of Joseph? Most of us are the descendants of Judah, if anything. But rather, what was the story of Joseph? What was his secret? How did he survive the evil eye, which had been so dangerous towards him, almost got him killed, got his coat taken away, got him sold into slavery? The answer is perseverance. When I see this particular pose, I hear two words in Hebrew. Chazak ve'ematz, be strong, be brave. Joseph had to be strong and had to be brave, and he was. Every step of the way, whether he was a prisoner, a slave in Egypt, a slave to prisoners in Egypt, in a jail, in a dungeon, he never gave up. Tempted by Potiphar's wife, he never strayed. He kept his thumbs tightly entwined. Chazak ve'ematz, be brave, be strong. That was the secret of Joseph's success. And that's what the rabbis are telling us. We are the spiritual descendants of Joseph. And we, the Jewish people, we persevere. The whole world aims its evil eye at us in every generation. And yet here we are. We persist. We keep going. We don't lose faith. We are strong. We are brave. And you know who was told that exact phrase, Chazak ve'ematz, be strong, be brave, time after time in the book of Deuteronomy? Joshua. It was Moses who said to Joshua, Chazak ve'ematz. So when Moses prayed for Joshua, he was afraid that Joshua would be the victim of the evil eye, but Joshua indeed was strong, and he was brave, and therefore he prevailed. We don't have a mitzvah of re'eh, we have a mitzvah of shema, of hear. And if we ourselves sometimes feel this evil eye in ourselves towards others, if we sometimes feel that somebody is getting something it's unfair, they don't deserve it, it should be taken away from them, that should be a warning call to us that we need to take a deep breath, and instead of looking, we need to listen, we need to understand. The Torah says, in describing the land, one particular spot, Hebron, it was built 7 years before the city of Tzoan in Egypt. Kalev went to visit Hebron. What does it mean 7 years built before Tzoan in Egypt? Rashi says that's impossible because Hebron is in the land of Canaan and Tzoan is in the land of Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim was the older son of Ham. Ham would have built Tzoan for Mitzrayim far before he built Hebron for Canaan, his younger son. But rather, says Rashi, something remarkable. Because the land of Egypt is considered the garden of God, it's the most beautiful land, and Tzoan is the place where the kings dwelt. Whereas Eretz Canaan, specifically Hebron, is called Terashin, which means subpar territory, so much so that it was used as a burial place, a cemetery, basically. And yet the Torah says it's 7 years built before. It's not 7 years built before, it's 7 times more beautiful. That's what Rashi says, which in itself is a contradiction. If you're telling me it's that Egypt is more beautiful and so on is the aristocracy's home, then that's the most beautiful. How can you say Hebron? Because the eyes see the physical thing. We go to the Alps. The Alps are, as we say in Hebrew, Otzer Nishima, breathtaking. But when you stand at the Me'arat HaMachpelah in Hebron, it's Otzer Nishama, which means it is soul-taking. A Jew travels all over, sees the Taj Mahal, the Great Wall of China, the Grand Canyon. They're definitely impressed, but they stand by the Western Wall. Something touches their heart. We need to take a deep breath and to listen and to internalize, because what's in our heart will influence what we see. And if we see the world correctly, well, then the world will be in order. Shavua tov.